Greetings. Today we continue with part 2 of the 10th section of Psalm 119, Testimony through the Word. Psalm 119:73 says, "Thy hands have made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding that I may learn thy commandments." David begins this section very similarly to the way he began the last section, by the use of the regular word for to do or to make. He emphasizes the personal role of God in the creation of man. He declares that God used his hands to make and to fashion him. Such a declaration flies in the face of modern evolutionary theory. Job 2:7 simply says, Genesis 2:7 says, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Job 10, verse 8 says, "Thy hands have made me and fashioned me together round about, yet dost thou destroy me." Psalm 139, verse 13 famously says, "For thou hast possessed my reins, my innermost being. Thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." Verse 14 continues, "I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee, when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lower parts of the earth," or referring to the mother's belly. Verse 16 says, "Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them." May I make an observation? True learning will never take place until the actual roles and relationships of the teacher and the pupil are defined and accepted. See, David here is declaring that he is accepting that his Creator is the teacher and that he is the student. And on the basis of this clearly defined relationship, he asks to be enabled to learn. Who better knows the creation than the Creator? Oh, how every creature needs to understand this truth and appeal to his Creator. So verse 74 says, "They that fear thee will be glad when they see me, because I have hoped in thy word." Now we're introduced to a new word here for fear. It's Strong's 03373, and it means a reverential fear. In this verse, it's used, and again in verse 79 of this 119th Psalm. Only 2 times here. Elsewhere, it's used over 60 times in the Old Testament. If you and I were to consider all these references, you conclude that every man either has this fear of God or he does not have this fear of God. You would also discover that this fear of God is one side of a two-sided coin. And on the other side of this fear of God is the mercy of God. We're going to look at Psalm 33, verses 18 through 21. Verse 18 of Psalm 33 begins, "Behold, the eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy." See how it's said there? 2 sides of one coin. Fear on one side, mercy on the other. "To deliver their soul from death, and to keep them alive in famine. Our soul waiteth for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. Our heart shall rejoice in him, because we have trusted in his holy name." On more than one occasion, David declared that it was better to place oneself with fear into the hand of God's mercy than to fall into the hands of men. This is the very word used to describe Job in Job chapter 1 and verse 1, where it says, "There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. That man was perfect," that is, mature and complete, "and upright, one that feared God and eschewed or hated evil." We should contrast what David is saying about obedience rooted in the fear of the Lord with the disobedience of others who do not fear the Lord. He said in Psalm 36:1, the transgression of the wicked saith within my heart, that there is no fear of God before his eyes. Did I mention that every man either has this fear of God or he does not have this fear of God before his eyes? I did mention it, and it is a Bible doctrine.